Alright everyone, this is part 2 of my video. I'm hoping I can get a little bit more in depth and maybe be free to speak a little bit longer. See, I even aimed to make that last video short and it was 16 minutes just because I wanted to be thorough. This video, I mean, I'll be able to lay back, go in as detailed as I want, and mention, little things here and there I forgot. Some of the stuff I forgot that I'm probably going to mention in this video are why you should not buy laptops in general for most people, and I'll probably also mention why not you shouldn't buy a Mac unless absolutely necessary. Alright, or very wealthy and needing to get rid of money. Anyways, so first I want to talk to you guys about the history of. Here's the list of everything we're going to go over. First I want to talk to you guys about what's the history of computers and what made them fast. So what do I mean by that second part? What I mean by that second part on what made them fast, originally, when I asked the question in my last video, what makes a computer fast? Originally it wasn't always necessarily the CPU. Back when, not too long ago, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, all the CPUs sucked equally. They sucked so much that really the only way you could get yourself an advantage is to buy more RAM, and people went into great lengths to even find the best RAM companies, because sometimes RAM manufacturers were not doing a good job, and there were certain RAMs that were actually just much better. And so basically RAM was what set you apart, and processors were just, like I said, horrible. Even if you bought a high-end processor, it wasn't very much better than some of the mid-range processors. Especially if you took a mid-range processor and you pumped up a bunch of RAM into it, that's probably better than that new CPU. I knew that this was going to change eventually because I knew RAM could only be so useful, and it was the CPU that mattered. It was something that I caught on to really early, it affected my computer buying history. So CPUs nowadays, we're moving on to our second point, they've gotten so powerful that they've completely overwhelmed RAM. You could have 50 gigs of RAM, but because your CPU is using the small amounts of gigs of RAM properly, it's not even going to take advantage of that extra space. Whereas in the past, it would take advantage of however much, or you gave it 8 gigs of RAM, it would take advantage of all 8 gigs of RAM. The thing is, back in the day, you couldn't. I mean, you would think that's what everyone would do. There's a slight downside because since in the old days we were on a 32-bit architecture, so you could only take advantage of 3 gigs of RAM. So there was a cap on that too. So if in 2003 I bought a computer and I wanted to put 7 gigs of RAM in it, I couldn't really do that with those computer processors because those processors would only see 3 gigs, and Windows wasn't tailored to run 64-bit itself. So Windows wouldn't even know what to do with the other RAM. So even just throwing a bunch of RAM in your computer, at a certain point, even that was capped off. So luckily, we've made it to the years, I'd say after 2006, finally the CPUs got bearable and useful. Everything pre-2006 was hell. So be thankful if you didn't have to deal with that. I had to deal with that all through the 90s and 2000s. It was horrible. So as far as nowadays, we've got good CPUs. They've completely just destroyed RAM. As long as you've got a sufficient amount of RAM, your CPU is what will set your computer apart from another computer. Now moving on to why Intel over other companies. So I chose Intel because I've had 2 AMD processors and they've both sucked. They've both been horrible quality, and I know this is unfair to say for AMD because maybe those were the 2 exceptions, but I've had a bunch of Intel processors and I've never had any issues. So because of my own personal experience with AMD, and because if you go on the CPU benchmark site that I put up and you look at what other people are benching CPUs at, Intel's completely dominating the market. It's been dominating the market since AMD's 64 processor came out. Even then, I told people, I said, there's no point in buying a 64-bit because most programs aren't in 64-bit. Windows isn't even 64-bit. You know, like what are you guys doing? So even when AMD was the top dog and was making top of line processors and was beating Intel, it was very hard to take advantage of all that power, and you'd have to do sneaky things to do so. And so I'd say within that year and a half, 2 years, where everyone was all hyped up, including a lot of my family members, and I still make fun of them today about that, and they explain, oh no, AMD was the best back then, blah blah. Regardless, I've always trusted Intel because they've given good quality products, and just scientifically, the numbers show that they're better. Just the benchmarks, the raw data shows this A company is making better products than company B. Why would I waste money with inferior products? Especially when a computer is an investment. It's not a one-time buy in the sense that, or I'm sorry, it's not a multiple-time buy like you're buying candy bars. So you want to get something that will last you the long run. So for me, I had computers that lasted years because I made good choices, and my good choices had to do with Intel's tick-tock process. So what is Intel's tick-tock process? Well, you guys should understand this. When it comes to CPUs, Intel takes a CPU, makes it more efficient first. It shrinks the die, that basically the area and the nanometers of each pin. That's going on into a lot of detail, but just think of it in this sense: that you take car A and then you make car A more efficient. That's the tick for Intel, and what Intel does is when they make new processors, they do ticks and talks. So the tick I told you is making what you've already got more efficient. What's the talk? Well, the talk is just like a clock. Again, that's where it comes from. The talk is a completely new architecture, a new design, just a completely new thing, a new object for us to look at that has the same amount of efficiency as the previous computer, but it'll probably be faster because they built it with speed in mind. So think of it as, I guess, as building roads that are get you to your destination quicker, but you're trying to make sure that the roads aren't so much and so big that they're making your life inefficient. So the same level of efficiency as far as space, they're the same nanometers, but they're a brand new microarchitecture. So what I told my family and friends and everyone else, I said, you want to buy on the talks and you want to buy on certain key events. So for instance, for 2 decades we had single processor computers. When the first double processor computer hit the market, I jumped on it. I still have it today. It was made in 2006. It's in my living room. It's working perfectly. It's a dual core computer, the first dual core of its kind. As you see here, it's a Pentium D. And why did I jump on it? Because I said, hey, wow, this is a processor. It's taking, it's doubling its brain processing speed. It's probably going to run things more efficiently, and I think it's going to last the long run. I paid $1,500 for it. That was back in 2006, and like I said, it's lasted me till now, which is 6+ years. So this is definitely a great investment. I still use it. It's still in the living room. It's great for browsing. I knew that single processor computers were out, and actually I have the most powerful single processor computer. It's a single processor that's been hyper-threaded, but back then hyper-threading was not very efficient. Hyper-threading just means where you take one processor and you split it using software. You make 2 threads. You have that one processor act like 2 without being 2. The Pentium D was 2 physical, actual, separate processors. Or think of it, this might even help you if you think of it as brains. So 2 brains working together versus 1 brain that thinks it's 2, which is hyper-threading. So I got the Pentium D, and like I said, previous to that, my other computer, which is not working, sadly, that's a single processor computer that's been hyper-threaded. But again, the reason it's not because hyper-threading had a lot of issues. It's very hard to trick some brain into thinking it's 2, and they had to work out the kinks. So that computer's dead. I still have it, but that's just not. And then there's computers I've gotten before that. Those are completely dead. Those are just bad processors in general. Those were, like I said, back from the late 90s, early 2000s. They're just horrible computers to begin with. So again, why am I telling you about this TikTok thing? Why do I have this Wikipedia thing up? like I said, it's you want to use this as your roadmap for when to buy computers. So according to this, the best times to buy computers were on the talks, not the ticks. You want to buy on the new architectures when everything is amazingly powerful. So if you wait till, for instance, if you had bought in the Core 2 or the Pentium dual core, uh, that would have been a very good move for you, because that Core 2 would have held you over. It would have uh, you wouldn't have to worry about any of these other processors that were out until the Core I's hit. So what did I do? Personally, I went from a Pentium D dual core, did very well, and it's similar speeds to these Core 2s. So I held off. And then what was my next jump up? I passed this talk, which was the Nehalem talk, and I went straight to the Sandy Bridge talk right here, which was released here. It has the dates listed here, and mine was the Core i7. So what's the benefit of me going to this talk here versus I had people that wasted money buying computers all through here, there, and the other places? The benefit is you get the chance to have this new, super efficient, new microarchitecture that's going to last for a long time. And the other thing is, when they tick after that talk, all they're doing is they're taking the computer that you already have and they're making it more efficient. So we started off with 65 nanometer pins, we went to 32, and then if you look here, the Ivy Bridge is just the die shrink. It's the same architecture as the Sandy bridges. So you're going from a 32 to a 22 now, and these are being released as of, they're being released as of April of 2012 this year. The best thing for you to have done is, rather than have waited this long, is if you had bought the Core i7s from ages ago. Like I said, in 2009, I bought my Core i7, and it's been top of the line, amazing quality since then. So for 3 years, which is unheard of. Back in the day, sometimes people bought new computer every year just because the previous model was just so horrible. The next one was a huge step up. That's no longer the case though. Like, I could do everything, sound editing, video editing, on my computer, even though it's the same computer from '09. And again, that's because you bought it on the talk. So again, why am I telling you this? Well, let's look into the future. What are some things you should take advantage of, learn from this like long discussion that I just had? Well, assuming you don't have a new computer, should you buy these Ivy bridges, or should you wait till March to June of 2013 and buy this Haswell new microarchitecture? Well, you probably already have a computer. I would highly recommend waiting till this time, till March to June of next year. I would say buy these Haswells. These Haswells will be as important and as powerful as these Core i7s were to all this other horrible junk, all these other horrible processors. So these new microarchitectures are what you want to aim for. You never want to buy these ticks, die shrinks, unless you absolutely have to, like all your computers fry or break down or whatever. So if you absolutely, by the way, if you are not a high-end computer user, then I would say you don't have to wait for this Haswell. If you are a high-end or anywhere near high-end user, then yes, I would say wait. So for instance, if you just do the regular stuff on the computer, you're not doing anything fancy with any fancy programs, yeah, you should buy a Core i7 now. Don't wait. Buy the new microarchitecture of Sandy Bridge, because honestly, this new power that Haswell comes out with, you probably won't need it. Processors have become so powerful that software companies are leaps and bounds behind the hardware. Right now, hardware is in the lead, and software is trying to catch up. So even if, even when the Haswell comes out, and even if it comes with all this power, the software companies haven't even come to terms with the previous CPU. So I don't see why you would need that extra power if the software companies aren't making software that's utilizing it. So again, if you're just an average or above average user, go ahead, buy your new Sandy Bridge architecture Core i7. If, on the other hand, you are a high-end user and you have one of these older models, hold on to that until Haswell comes out. Okay, so let's say Haswell's coming out and someone says, I want a new computer, and it's, let's say it's September of 2013. What would I recommend them to do? Well, I'd say, well, you could buy this Haswell, or you can wait for the next talk, which is Skylake in 2015. Are you a high-end user? Are you a low-end user? What? If they're a high-end user, I'd say, hey, wait for this new talk and get this new Skylake style in 2015, because this will be a huge step up from Haswell, which was a huge step up from Sandy Bridge, which was a huge step up from Nehalem, which was a huge step up from just the core computers. So each of these huge steps, think of it as, you're going upstairs and you're taking another step up the stair. They're big jumps. So this is just trying to help you understand when you might want to buy a new computer. If you're an average user, go buy your Core i7 now, Sandy Bridge. Don't buy anything less, please. Don't buy those Core i5s. Don't buy those Core i3s. You'll thank yourself in a couple of years, because those Core i7s will last you. They'll last you a long time. They'll give you the quality you want, and you won't have to buy a new computer. Whereas a Core i3 is a double processor computer. It's not going to give you the power you need. Core i5s, quad cores, but they're not hyper-threaded, and so sometimes if you're running a powerful game, so your son wants to play a game or something, or your daughter wants to play a game, well, it could freeze up on them even if you have a brand new 3rd generation Core i5, because it does not have hyper-threading. There's no burden sharing. There's no 8 people working as one. There's just 4 cores just working at it. Being able to spread the load, so to speak, with those 8 processors is very helpful. So that was my computer buying history. I tried to explain it with TikTok in mind on what you should buy. Again, if you're above average or average user, go buy the Core i7s right now. If you're not, hold off, and if you're a power user, hardcore computer user, hold off till Haswell. It's only in a year, and you'll thank yourself. You'll get completely new architecture. Honestly, I wish I could get it, but the thing is, I really don't need that much power, even though I'm a high-end user. And I honestly wouldn't be able to afford it. It's just very expensive. It'll be another $1,000+ every time I bought. See, the thing is, I will pay a lot for a computer, but it'll last for a long time. So like I said, in 2006, bought that Pentium D 1500, done. It's still alive. It's still working. I'm still getting my money's worth. In 2009, February of 2009, I got my computer that I'm using and I'm speaking to you right now. Core i7, HD graphics card GPU. In February of 2009, when no one had known about Core i7s, when I told a few of my friends, "Oh, I got a Core i7," they were like, "What? What is that?" Like, no one had any ideas. Anyways, regardless, I bought that 3 years ago, and it's still amazing. It's still blowing games and software, crazy. And if you check right now, I'm recording this in HD. Here, I'm gonna put my task manager up for a second. I'm recording this in HD. Oops, sorry. And my CPU usage is just barely half. It's between half and 70%. And my RAM, I'm only using 3 gigs. So I'm barely taxing the computer. And as you can see here, I've got my 8 cores, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cores here, all working, burden sharing. If I only had a Core i5, then 4 of these would be gone. There would be no burden sharing, and that extra load would be thrown on top of those 4. So definitely go with your Core i7s. Buy your Intel processors. Those are what benchmarks all over the internet show are better. And get yourself a good amount of RAM. Like I mentioned before, 6 gigs is usually more than enough. I don't think I've even ever used 5 gigs. Maybe I think once I used 5 gigs when I was doing a bunch of really high-end programs. I haven't gotten anywhere near the 9 gigs that my computer has. So, physical memory. Anyways, that's just a little bit about that. We've explained when you should buy a computer, a little bit more about the TikTok theory. The next thing I want to go over here, as you can see, is why you should not buy laptops in general for most people. Laptops, if they mess up, they will mess up and they won't be fixable. It's very, very difficult to fix a laptop. Very difficult. What can you do if a laptop breaks? You basically buy another one, because most of the time it's hard to pin down what it is. And let's say you find out it's the motherboard. you can't switch out the motherboard. Let's say you find out it's the processor. You can't, for 99% of laptops, you can't switch out the processor. So you're just in trouble. If you had bought a desktop, though, you could have switched out all those parts, and you wouldn't be in as much of an trouble, and you would pay less for replacements. You just have a better experience overall. Oh, and by the way, desktops are more powerful than laptops. When you try to buy a laptop that's as powerful as a desktop, you will usually spend $200 to $300 more. Oh, and by the way, as far as desktops, like I was making the point before, as you see here, you could save money and buy this computer here, this for $429, or you could buy this $409. Let's just look at this $409 computer. So I got a Core i3. It's got a terabyte hard drive, 6 gigs of RAM. Like I said, Core i3 second generation processor. And how much would you pay? You'd pay $400 for it. Or if, but the thing is, like I said, it's a dual core processor. It's not all that powerful. It would only give you 2 of these CPUs. It will only give you 2 brains to work with, which, as you can tell, is not sufficient for most tasks. Even if you're an average user, I'd say don't get avoid a Core i3 because it won't last you a long time. Usually you invest in a good computer so that it lasts you a long time, and that it does, you know, exactly what you need with the least amount of frustration. So look, you could have paid $410 for that, or you could have stepped it up, paid a little bit more. This is $780, and you would have had a Core i7 done. Core i7 second generation, 4 gigs of DDR3, a terabyte of hard drive, DVD drive. You know, it's a 64-bit computer. You could have just gotten this, or if you don't like that version, you can get this gaming one that looks a little bit nicer, and it's a little bit more because it comes with more RAM. It's a 3rd generation Core i7, so you're getting something way more powerful. Because I know there's probably some people who are going to write, oh, well, Phoenix, that's only a 2nd generation Core i7. Why do you want me to buy old software? Okay, here, pay another couple $100 in there. For $900, you've got yourself Core i7 power. So do you want to pay $500 more for the investment so that you don't get frustrated when you're doing your work, your emails and stuff? Yes, you want. That's what you want to do. All the people, all my friends, everyone I know that has skimped on computers, they've bought subpar stuff, have ended up having the computer die on them, and they'd have to buy another one. So if you have to buy 2 of these computers because it died on you early, well, that's $800. Oh, and geez, look right here, 900. So for the extra 100, you save yourself hassle. You don't lose any files. You've got speed that this one does not have. This is slow. So I mean, it's the best bang for your buck. It's why you don't buy a dirt cheap shoe when you go outside, and you don't buy a $5 or $10 shoe and you walk with it. You pay a good amount of money, $50 to $100, to buy a good shoe, so that as you have it throughout that year or 2 years or 3 years, however long you wear it, you have comfort as you walk around. There's certain things you don't skimp on. Computers is one of them. If you can't afford it, you save up until you can afford a good quality one. It's just one of those investments. You do the same thing with a home. You don't skimp on a home. It's an investment, and you have to make sure you get a good home, because it's very hard to sell and get another one. And you don't want to go home shopping. People don't want to go shoe shopping all the time. Well, I'm not gonna go on that. I'm not falling for that, trolls. But yeah, in general, people do not want to go shopping for shoes all the time. And in general, you don't want to go shopping for a computer all the time. You just don't. So pay a little bit more, get your quality up. So again, laptops, they're more expensive for the same speed, and they're super hard to fix. Oh, and laptops tend to break more often because you're moving them around everywhere, and because again, all the components are in such a small space. There's more ability for things to go wrong than a desktop, which just sits on your desk. It just does nothing. It's not being shook around. It's the components are larger. They're given free space. They're not crammed. So that's exactly it's why you don't see desktops failing as often as laptops do. Don't buy a laptop Very, very few people in this world, I'd say probably 2 or 3% of the population need a laptop. Honestly, just buy a tablet. Buy a tablet and have your desktop, and you can use. And by the way, when you're buying tablets, buy one of those quad core ones. Don't buy those dual core tablets. Those won't last you as long. Buy a nice quad core tablet, super powerful. That way you won't have. Again, that's another investment. You won't have to buy a tablet every year. All right, now for Macs. I think it's gonna be our last point. Can't think of anything else really to discuss. I think we've gone very in depth at this point. Macs. Why should you not buy one unless absolutely necessary? Because a Mac is usually very expensive for less speed. For instance, let's go to this Mac. There's a Mac here, I believe. Yes, $1,200 for 4 gigs of RAM. Alright, for $1,200, I could have gotten this, which has a bunch of RAM, more RAM than I probably ever use. And this is actually skimping. 4 gigs is not enough for a computer. Even for a Mac, you want around 6 gigs. And that's going to cost you more to add that in. Look at the hard drive. It's bare bones 500 gig hard drive. Like I said, bare minimum, you want a 400 gig hard drive. What do these computers offer you? They offer you a terabyte, and this offers you a terabyte. So already you can see Apple skimping on certain products, on certain features. And what do you get for all this money? You get Apple's operating system. That's basically it. You get a nice monitor too. Basically, this monitor is your computer. That's one of the benefits of it. This monitor has everything in it, so you don't have to lug around a big square thing. The monitor is the computer, which is beneficial. You get a nice keyboard and mouse. But for this price, like I said, unless you're very wealthy and you're needing to get rid of money, you probably should not pay $1,200 for this. $1,200 versus $900 is a difference of $200, or 300. I'm sorry, I'm tired right now. So if I've got 900 and I paid 300 more, I get this. Sorry, all the nines confuse you. This is 12. That's 9. 9 and 12 is 3. $300 is not cheap. $300 is like a tablet. So I mean, if you can afford, if you're the type of person that wants a beautiful looking computer, they love the OS on Mac, the operating system, or there's some program that Macs have that PCs don't. There's very few of those. Then yeah, go ahead and pick this up. By the way, to be honest, Apple's, when you're using them for long periods of time, meaning you're in a studio working on some movie for 12, 13 hours, they are more stable than I'd say PCs. So if it's like a work computer that you need to work on for 12 hours a day, or 8 to 12 hours a day, then maybe you might want a Mac because they seem to be more stable in the long run. But there's a lot of costs that comes with the Mac. Costs like you get inferior specs, and you also get shut out of certain programs that are PC only. And the reason why is because the PC market is about 90% of all computer users. So why would I make my program compatible with Mac if I'm already hitting 90% of the market? A lot of program companies don't have the time or resources to do that. So again, it's up to you. But unless absolutely necessary, I would not recommend getting a Mac. It just doesn't justify the cost. I hope this was helpful. This is more in-depth discussion of what you should get, and I wanted to be just a little bit more thorough about computers in case you were curious. Maybe you want to know a little bit about the history of the computer, understand how at one point RAM was better, more important than your CPU. I hope you found it informative. I hope Intel's TikTok thing didn't bore you too much, but it's just supposed to be a sort of computer buying guide help. Basically, it's supposed to help you time when you buy your computer. And like I said, if you're a normal or average or a little bit above average end computer, you want to buy the Core i7s they've got right now in the market. Like I said, you can pick this up for 9, you can pick this one up for 8, or you can, if you want, you already have a good computer. Let's say, for instance, you've got a Core 2 Duo, or you've got a Core 2 Quad. I'd say, hold on till Haswell. Wait a year, Look what I did. I waited from Pentium D from '06 till '09, and I waited 3 years. So I waited three times longer than you would have to do. This is Immortal Phoenix. Hope this wasn't too daunting. We're gonna end the video now. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and that's the end of my second tutorial. Please subscribe if you want to get more tutorial videos, or honestly, if you just like my videos and you don't want to worry about that hassle, just check back every so often. That's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to subscribe. Take care, guys.